Welcome into the Warchant.com Hoops Report. It's great to see everybody. It's been a little while, just like it was for the Florida State basketball team. About a 2-week hiatus is over, and Wake Forest came down to Tallahassee and put a real scare into Florida State on Saturday afternoon. 13 made threes. They were shooting 50% from three basically the whole game. Ira Schoffel, managing editor of Warchant.com. Your thoughts, sir, as the layoff is over, and now Florida State has to turn right around for a huge game on Monday.
Yeah, I think in some regard, maybe that Wake Forest game was a good kind of a, I would say, exam pop quiz going into the big exam against Virginia on Monday night. It's probably a little too close for comfort. I don't think anybody expected Wake Forest to push FSU to overtime, let alone Florida State need to score on basically a buzzer beater from Scottie Barnes to send the game to overtime. But I think it tested FSU. I think they saw some things they already knew they needed to work on, especially defensively. And I think this kind of gave them just another example of how important it is to stay focused, to play cleaner defensively, to play smarter defensively. And Wake Forest, as you said, took advantage of all those opportunities, hit all those threes. Young man from the senior from Wake Forest who averaged 6 points a game, Jonah, I can't remember his last name, Antonio.
Oh, yeah.
He was averaging about 6.2 points per game, hit 7 threes on 8 attempts. Mm-hmm. And, Florida State did a good job of limiting his opportunities a little bit down the stretch and were able to get the win. So, I think you would have liked to have maybe had a little bit less stressful of a game leading into Virginia. But at the same time, it was a good test, I think, to get them, focused for a huge, huge game against the Cavaliers.
So for reference real quick on Antonio's game, I went back and I looked at Scott Wood's game log because we all remember Scott Wood just going absolutely berserk. And this was in the 09-10 season, his freshman season. And Scott Wood went 7 for 11 at the Tucker Center. And then later in the season in the ACC tournament, he went 6 for 10 from three in both those games against Florida State. So Antonio was actually better in this game. But you're right, Ira. I thought the way that Florida State was able to deny the basketball down the stretch was really big to number 20 in black. They finally had figured it out that don't let that guy kill you. But overall, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think, and the reason Scott Woods probably felt more drastic at that time because FSU had such a hard time scoring points.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an FSU team that the other night, scored 92 in that game. It went to overtime, but they had, I guess, 80 in regulation. And so when you can score like that and somebody hits 7 threes, it hurts, but it's not quite what it was back then. And back in those days, when a guy came in and hit 7 threes, you just felt like Florida State had no chance.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ira. Like, how many games could those teams from like 09 to 12 have actually won if the opponent hit 13 threes in a given game? Like, I don't know how many times you could survive that. And it was different players putting on the cape at different times for Florida State. Malik Osborne hit some big shots, some big three-pointers to keep Florida State within touch in certain moments or to break a run. Scottie Barnes obviously shows up at the end, but it was Raekwon Gray. It was Raekwon Gray who was a consistent force throughout the game. It's been unbelievable to watch Raekwon Gray this season. From the first game against, I think it was North Florida, all the way to now. It wasn't just the physique. You could see the confidence he's exuding on the court, Ira. And now he's averaging, you sent the notes before the call, about 17 and 8 over his last half dozen games. I mean, that's massive. We're getting into that territory again where a player that you didn't expect for Coach Hamilton is now performing at such a level that you're asking yourself, I know at least I am, is he going to be around next year or is he playing his way to the next level?
It's funny how you kind of play that game in your mind. Like you want more,
yep.
And then they start giving you more and you're like, whoa, hold on now. Let's not get carried away. He had 24 and 12 in that game, had that nasty dunk, contested dunk against Wake Forest. And really, again, has been a guy that's just stepped up in so many moments. Even earlier this season, before he was scoring the way he's been scoring the last 6 games, he came up with a lot of big buckets, a lot of big steals, a lot of big block shots. He just kind of came. He knows when to really step up. But these last half dozen games, it's just been he's been playing at a different level, and that's great for Florida State. And it's not many teams are going to have somebody that can match up with him because of his rare combination of size, strength, quickness, touch, passing ability, shooting ability. And I think he's going to be a vital weapon, obviously, against Virginia and some of these other games down the stretch. But like you said, I mean, it's you start to wonder what his possibilities could be because there just aren't many guys that are built like him that can do all the things he can do.
So there was a moment a few years ago when it was Kabengele's turn to just shoot up the ranks. And he was playing really well against Duke for the whole country to see. But it was about 2-3 weeks later, I'm watching the game with my colleague, Jeff Cameron, and he hits one of his patented threes in transition where he kind of trails the play. And then they just feed the ball to him on the wing because the defense falls asleep and he hits it. And we turn to each other and go, damn it, he's gone. There's no way. There's no way he's sticking around. But in this game, Raekwon was massive, not only on the score sheet in the obvious ways, but given that Florida State got in foul trouble early in the post without Balsha Koprivica in this game, Raekwon pulled down some really big rebounds for Florida State. But Balsha turning his ankle in the pregame, and I don't know if you heard anything new in the last 12, 20 hours, Ira, that could be a massive development as it relates to the challenge that Virginia is going to bring to the table. Florida State had to work around a real problem in the post on Saturday, and they barely got the job done, but they really missed not having Balsa out there.
Yeah, it was not good, and he's a guy that can do so many things and has been developed defensively to go with his offensive skills. And that was a game where Wake Forest doesn't have a lot in size. You thought maybe that if Florida State could kind of impose their will inside, but he can't play. And then Tenor Nagam gets into foul trouble. I think Malik Osborne got into foul trouble, and Raekwon Gray was basically it. He was like the guy that had to play in the post. Obviously, he played really well, especially in the second half. But we haven't heard what the status is for Balsha. My guess is just my layman's medical opinion. I would think there's a good chance he'll play just because. Even during warmups and after he turned his ankle, he was on the bicycle. It wasn't like one of those where, okay, we have to shut him down immediately. There's so much swelling or whatever. They were hoping to give it a go, it looked like, in that game. So you'd like to think that it was precautionary, especially against a team like Wake Forest that didn't have a lot of size. So I would think he'd be ready to go, but they're going to need all their weapons. There's no doubt because if you watch Virginia against North Carolina, the way they've been playing, the record obviously speaks for itself at 11-1 in the conference, but they just kind of manhandled North Carolina over the weekend. And you'd love to have that guy because Virginia is they're not necessarily a team that's going to pound away inside, but they do have some guys that can play down there.
Well, and it was interesting too. If you haven't checked it out yet, go to warchant.com and check out the Analytics piece on the ACC contenders. That almost got completely torpedoed by Wake Forest yesterday, hitting all those 3-pointers. But what Virginia's doing on offense this year is exceptional. But Ira, it's funny when certain things click. Yesterday in the post game, Leonard Hamilton was talking about, some of the things that Virginia does, and maybe they're a little bit different on offense this year than they have been in years past, and maybe they're stressing some things that are different on defense. And he was talking about doubling the post. And he said, you get the ball inside, they'll double the post. And it didn't hit me. I wish I had thought of it a little sooner. Maybe I would have put some potato chips on it. But North Carolina, that's all they have is the post. That's all they do. And so about 3 possessions into that game on the way to a 21-4 run, which against Virginia is like scoring 50-0. I was like, yeah, man, North Carolina doesn't have anything for them. But Florida State does because, lost in the wash of Wake Forest hitting 13-27 from 3 on Saturday afternoon. Florida State had 12 threes of their own. And
right, 12-25, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. That's how you beat a team that likes to collapse down low, play pack line defense, is to shoot your way out of it. So I would think whether Balsa is healthy and good to go or not, one of the keys to the game would be hitting the 3-pointer at a clip that Florida State has been accustomed to hitting it, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think there's the one thing that really makes me feel good about Florida State's chances against Virginia is you have to be able to hit shots from the perimeter. And, they're with the pack line defense, they're not going to let you get inside. And that's where North Carolina got into a lot of trouble. Their guards would try to penetrate and just kind of, dribble into turnovers or try tough passes inside. They had a few good opportunities where their posts passed to each other and they kind of just passed over the pack line defense because they have such size. It's unbelievable. But they didn't do enough of that. And, they shot it poorly from the perimeter. Florida State has been shooting it much better. And they've got guys that can hit not only the threes, but they've got guys who can shift. Raekwon Gray and some of those guys can shoot from the short corner. They can hit shots in different areas of the court with high efficiency. So that's a positive. What concerns me a little bit, there are a few things that concern me about that game, and we could talk about it a little bit more. But one thing that concerned me from this game against Wake Forest was Florida State dribbled into some turnovers in this game that I thought was really uncharacteristic. Just just not protecting the ball, just kind of being almost brazen the way they just dribbled into defenders and lost control of the ball. And obviously, I mean, that would be a death against Virginia. So they really have to shore that up. But from a shooting perspective, I agree 100%. I think that's one of the things they have going for them now that, 5, 6, 7 years ago when Florida State would go up against them for all of FSU's athleticism, they didn't shoot the ball well enough from the perimeter to take down Virginia.
Oh, in those days, it'd be first to 43 wins the game. Yeah, this one's a little bit different. And you're right, Ira. It's funny at halftime, Florida State's up 10, and you're kind of chuckling because they didn't look that great, and they didn't finish the first half on a good note. Two things happened. Number one, when all the post players got in trouble, and Florida State continued to roll another big man out there, and Ballard got some minutes in the first half because of all the foul trouble. You saw that until they played a little bit smaller, they had real problems. And then the last, 3 or 4 possessions of the first half, they're doing exactly what you're talking about, which is, you're down to 8 seconds of the shot clock, and you're like, I don't know what's going on here. This doesn't look anything like a typical half-court possession this season. Dribbling into trouble, the overpassing around the perimeter. It reminded me kind of the old days, and you saw some of that in the second half as well. But I have a hard time with it because this is, again, the first game after a really long layoff. So I don't know if it's foul trouble that begets a rotation that guys aren't used to, a group of 5 that are not used to playing with each other, with rust on top of all those things. But if you were to ignore the delay and string together the Miami effort offensively, the Georgia Tech game, and then this one, Florida State the offensive performance is a little bit more bumpy. It's been a few games now where turnovers are up a little bit, and the decision making seems to be a little bit more forced than it is loose and free. What do you think? Do you think it's a trend, or do you think it's something that you just kind of have to discount because of the rust?
I do wonder, part of it could be the kind of the herky-jerky nature of the season and getting some extra time off. It looked to me like, again, this is something Coach Hamilton's been talking about all season. There are times where he feels like they should be more aggressive, and they're not. There should be times where there should be make the extra pass and they're rushing shots. And it just seems like just a little bit out of whack. The pieces are there. They just don't seem to be firing on all cylinders. And I think defensively in that game as well. Early on, I thought FSU's energy was really good defensively. I thought they were really challenging. To me, it looked like Wake Forest was hanging around with some of those big early threes, but it seemed like they were always on the verge of turning it over. Like they would make a pass just in the nick of time before they were about to turn it over. I thought FSU was playing very aggressively and sharp defensively early. Then I thought they started to gamble because Wake Forest they were always just like a split hair ahead, and we're making them pay with those threes. I thought FSU started gambling and making some poor decisions, and then that's led to in some lack of communication, and that led to complete breakdowns defensively. So they've got a lot to work on, obviously. But again, to your point, the offense doesn't look like where it needs to be, but they still scored 92 points. It just shows how many weapons they have, and a guy like Scottie Barnes who looked out of sorts and didn't look like he was certainly wasn't being aggressive, didn't look very comfortable, and then comes through with some of the biggest plays of the game. And that's kind of been the story of this team.
Oh, no doubt. That was a really difficult play to execute down the stretch, made to look incredibly easy. And that's the kind of stuff that having a one-and-done player does for you. I would be interested to see if in the future we're in a situation like that, if a team doesn't foul Scottie and force him to tie the game from the line if they're going to get beat. But as for yesterday's purposes, to be able to pull off with that speed, that much body control, you go under the rim to protect the shot, and to be able to pull it all off with about 0.5 of a second to go, that was a really impressive moment. And as he was crab walking up towards the opposing baseline, you had the feeling, because Wake Forest is in foul trouble too, that if it was going overtime, it's going the Noles way, because what game doesn't anymore? When they get to that particular game, it's unbelievable. That's a record that is just uncanny, and it speaks to great coaching. But Ira, on the sidebar side of things, there's something you mentioned that last week, I think it was on the Thursday media availability, Leonard Hamilton and Coach CY had shown some film of yesteryear to the current group of players, just to maybe inspire them to play with a little bit more intensity. And we're talking about the bench players. What did you learn there?
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. It was one of those things we wouldn't possibly know, but Coach Hamilton kind of offered it up, and I thought it was insightful that last week in practice, CY Charlton Young, one of the assistant coaches, broke out some old film of the Boom Squad, which FSU fans may remember from 4 or 5 years ago. It was when Trent Forrest and CJ Walker, who was here at the time, and those guys would come off the bench. They called themselves the Boom Squad. And a lot of times they sometimes extended leads when they came off the bench. And most of it was because of their effort, their energy defensively. They just got up on people, challenged everything, forced a lot of turnovers, got a lot of steals, got a lot of runouts. And even though they weren't as skilled offensively as their older teammates, they made so much happen with effort and intensity, and just that spark. And what they wanted the players to see, especially the younger players, is to see what it really takes at this level to make an impact, especially coming off the bench. Like what do they want those young guys to show when they come off the bench? And it's being very active with your hands, just kind of being menaces. You're not playing 30, 35 minutes. You might be playing 10 minutes. You might be playing 14 minutes. When you come off the bench, man, it's got to be all out, all intensity, forcing the issue, and then creating plays offensively. That was one thing that Leonard Hamilton said, was that, when they evaluated during that pause, they had some time to really evaluate this team. And even though they've won most of their games, I think right now they're 7-2 in the ACC. They feel like they're leaving points on the court every game because they're not getting. There's 4 or 5 or 6 steals into layups a game that they're not getting. And so that was one of the things they really wanted to show them. What I thought was interesting also was the response that Hamilton said that the young players, when they watched it, it was like they almost had like wow moments, like, okay, that's what it's supposed to look like. So, we'll see how it plays out. The bench got kind of shortened this past game against Wake Forest because Leonard wanted to really lean on the experienced players. It became such a close game, and I think defensively he was concerned. And so they went with a lot of the older players in the shorter rotation. We'll see what they do against Virginia going forward. But I thought that was interesting that they took that approach. And then also, I think, coaches can talk about something a lot, but when they actually got to see it in practice and what it produced, we'll see. Maybe it'll have an impact on the stretch.
If you're just joining us and you're skipping around the video on YouTube, this is the Warchant.com Hoops Report. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video so you get alerted. You hit the like button or the subscribe button, a bell pops up, hit the bell, and you're alerted every time Warchant.com goes live with content just like this. We got hoops coverage, recruiting coverage. I know that the junior class is now graduating up, the class of 2022. Spring football era is just under 3 weeks away. That's March 9th, the beginning of spring practice for the football program. So keep it locked to Warchant right here on YouTube. And, of course, you can subscribe to Warchant.com. 30 days free. The promo code's right there at the bottom of this video, Warchant30. I can tell you, Ira, I remember the first time I saw the Boom Squad in action. It was Florida State, Virginia Tech years ago. It was the beginning of the conference slate. Buzz Williams comes down to town, and you're just enamored with the starting 5. And then the next thing you know, these guys come in, and with CJ and Trent, and they motivated each other, and they pushed each other, and you saw it that, like, oh, man, the standard has been completely changed. It was to a new level of intensity, and it was those 6 to 10 minutes. Give me everything you got, and then they'd be winded as they came out for a breather, and then in comes some of the old guard. That's something that I can imagine, especially in a week like this one, if it's going to be played as scheduled, because Virginia Tech's got some COVID issues around their program right now. Virginia Monday night, and then Virginia Tech on Saturday. You're going to need depth. It's going to be really challenging, especially with an overtime game like yesterday's. Your thoughts on the week ahead for Florida State and any other thoughts you might have?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, Virginia Tech and Virginia are 2 of the other top 3 teams really in the ACC. And both, I mean, Virginia appears to be the class of the ACC. It's really hard to tell, though, right now because of everybody's played uneven schedules. Virginia's played more games in the conference. They have 1 less loss. Florida State, they only have 1 loss. Florida State has 2 losses in the conference, but they played less games. So, it's difficult to kind of really get a feel for just where everybody is. But, Virginia Tech's done a really nice job this season. And Virginia obviously appears to be the class of the league. And, they're, looking at this game, I just think there's going to be, as we talked a little bit about earlier, Florida State shooting, I think, is a real positive. One key matchup I'm a little bit concerned about is Scottie Barnes against their point guard, because he is a much smaller, quicker, much more athletic, dynamic guard that we love Scottie Barnes' length and we love what he can do defensively, but this is a different kind of matchup. This is like a a welterweight going up against a flyweight. I mean, this guy is very quick, and what he did against North Carolina was he did a really good job of getting into the paint and either looking to score. He didn't score a whole lot, but he could find guys on the wings. They're so well coached.
Yep.
They're so smart, and he would get into the lane. He'd leave his feet, which coaches will tell you not to do, but he would leave his feet, and he knew exactly where all of his other teammates were and would find the open man. Sometimes while he's flying through the air, and it's going to be interesting. Can Scottie Barnes stay in front of a guy like that defensively, and then offensively? We like Scottie Barnes' basketball IQ, but going up against that pack line defense is a little bit different. They have seen it this season, so it's not like this is the first time they've seen it. Louisville plays a similar style, and Florida State did really well against them. But that part to me is going to be interesting to see how Scottie plays against them defensively. I love the fact that Raquan Gray is a fourth-year guy, has seen it a ton. Anthony Polite's a fourth-year guy. MJ Walker's a fourth-year guy. Those guys that are going to be playing a lot of minutes, they know what you can't do against that defense. You can't get in there and just take your time and dribble. If you're going to get into that pack line, you got to either shoot or get rid of the ball quickly, or you're going to be in tough time. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. I like the fact that it's at home. You wish they could have 11 or 12,000 fans there, but it should be a lot of fun. I mean, I think these two teams, to me, seem to be the cream of the crop in the conference.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that, especially, some of the losses that other programs have suffered within the conference this year that are just eye-opening. It looks like these are the most consistent, but any given night, things can happen in the ACC. That being said, to me, yes, what Florida State did against Louisville on the road gives you at least a little bit of hope that they can handle the pack line and they can shoot their way past some of the issues that the pack line presents. But it's just, this is such a weird game, Ira, for a lot of reasons. And I know what you're saying about Kihei Clark, and Scottie has been, uneven at times when he's defending the ball. It might be worth Anthony Polite spending some time guarding Kihei Clark. But what's interesting to me about this matchup is Virginia is last in the country in adjusted tempo, and yet their offensive efficiency is through the roof. So if Florida State can get Virginia to break tendencies and play a little bit faster, is that actually the best thing in the world, or would you rather play this at a slower tempo? It's a really awkward game. But if Virginia gets up 8 on you, it's different than any other 8-point margin that there is in college basketball. I mean, it's absurd how much they take the life out of the game, and you have to be really patient on defense. I mean, that requires a full 30-second commitment to your principles and your rotations, because they'll just break you down after 24, 25 seconds of good defense, kick out for a wide open high percentage look, and they hit it at a better rate this year. They're going to be tested in so many ways physically, but I think also their patience is going to be a big thing that this comes down to. I know that at the time we're recording this, it's on Sunday. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. But you've got an article that's going up soon on the walk-ons, Ira. Is that correct? And how they're helping the coaching staff?
Yeah, I appreciate it. And to your point earlier about spring football coming up, we actually are going to start our spring football position previews. Will be starting this week. So we'll be running 2 or 3 of those a week leading up to the season, both with written content, but also video, so people can look for that as well. But yeah, I'm doing a story about the 4 walk-ons that people know, Florida State fans have gotten to know the last few years because they get in the game. They call them the Green Vipers when they get in the game late into some of these blowout victories, and you got to see a chance to see them play. A couple of them actually have gotten some other playing time when just in the course of a game because they've played so well. But it's really interesting. All 4 of these guys came back or came here 5 years ago. They're all 5th-year seniors. And what's really been cool about it is they're basically now extensions of the coaching staff. Each player, because they all play different positions, they have a point guard, a guard, a small forward, and a post. They each have like 3 guys on the team of the main scholarship players that they're responsible for as accountability partners during the game. And so what they do, and in practice, so what they do during the game is if there's something in the scouting report that's specific, like you're playing a Kihei Clark or somebody, they may have specific assignments for how they're going to handle switches, how they're going to handle picks, how they're going to handle drives, where they want to shade him defensively, where they want to attack him offensively. And so the walk-ons, what they do is they're watching the game like coaches during the game. And so when the players come out for a break or it's a timeout, those guys will actually help coach individually the players at their position. So Travis Linder, who plays point guard, when Scottie Barnes comes out, he'll actually kind of give him some pointers he saw. Hey, remember when we do this is something we wanted to do in this particular game. And it's just a reminder, because during the game everything's going so fast and furious. Sometimes guys forget things from the scouting report. So they become extensions of the coaching staff because they've been in the program now for 5 years. And I think it's a great benefit to the program. It's really cool for those guys because, again, none of them got to be a Scottie Barnes coming out of high school or seen as a one and done, but they really feel like they made a major contribution. They make a major contribution to the program. And so I'll have a story coming up on the day of the game and leading up into that Virginia game.
That's really cool to hear, Ira. I look forward to reading that story, and you can get great stuff just like that at warchant.com. That's the standard at warchant.com. But it's really cool to hear what's going on behind the scenes because, a lot of players and a lot of teams on the benches, if the walk-ons are fortunate enough to get into a game situation, they'll go nuts if a walk-on makes a basket. But it feels a little bit different. It feels more genuine than a lot of other programs at Florida State. It's not like a gimmick. It's like there is genuine joy, and you see how locked in the bench is when somebody like a Prieto comes in. He got regular minutes earlier this year, like you're talking about. Yeah, it was near the end of the first half of a game.
And they all credited their teammates. They credited the coaching staff with bringing in scholarship guys that are good guys that aren't going to look down on them. But then also they credit the coaching staff, particularly Coach Hamilton, and with creating a culture where everybody in the program is appreciated. And so to your point, yeah, man, again, that was one of the things that kind of caught me with this story was, how is Scottie Barnes or an MJ Walker who came in as a 5-star guy, are they really going to listen to what a walk-on tells them? But really, they say Justin Linder said that Scottie Barnes will text him and say, hey, make sure to stay on me about this. And Raekwon Gray has told some of those guys, hey, make sure when I'm in the game, remind me to offense rebound or remind me to push the ball in transition. And so, they want that coaching. They want that advice from walk-ons. It's pretty cool. And again, I think it speaks to your point, a genuineness that you see in that program.
Well, that's awesome. I look forward to reading that, and also I hope to see the Green Vipers tomorrow night on the court.
that would be something. We'll see.
That would be really well timed for your article, and also a statement to not just the ACC but the college basketball world. I don't know that we're going to see that just yet, but Ira, it's been a pleasure as always. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Valentine's Day, and to all of you out there, thanks for tuning in to the Warchant.com Hoops Report. Remember, like, subscribe, head to Warchant.com for the best coverage in the business. You name your sport. I saw your interview with interim head coach Brooke Wyckoff earlier this week. That was really well done as well. So
appreciate it. Enjoyed that.
Yeah, absolutely. And enjoy the time with you as always. Everybody, make sure hit that subscribe button. Last reminder, and get ready for the game today with that story on the Green Vipers. For Ira Schoffel, managing editor of Warchant.com, my name is Tom Lang. Until next time on the Warchant.com Hoops Report.